Hey guys, welcome back to another For Honor video. As an official For Honor announcement gets made, it reanimates my body and forces me to make a video at the same time. Otherwise, should I try posting outside of this time frame, I will be instantly smacked down by the algorithm gods for daring to make my own upload schedule. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get down to business and talk about the content for this season. But before we talk about the content for this season though, I have to mention some armor from last season because I didn't make a video about it. Mostly because there was nothing to make a video about. That being said, there are a few things that I will very briefly touch on. One, Warden got plate armor, apparently. I mean, it does relatively look like a breastplate, at least texture-wise, so it is something. Why they went through the effort of texturing a breastplate but then leaving that strapped-on plate is beyond my understanding. But I guess his armor is wearing armor too now. Besides that, everything is really gold and the samurai got some metal-ish armor. So that's pretty neat. Now we can move on to this season's new armor variations, and I'll be quite brief for these ones too because there's even less to talk about. At least on an individual sense, I want to talk more broadly about them. For example, we have the knights first. If we look past the comically redundant use of skulls, there is something interesting to note about the armor textures. It becomes most apparent on Lawbringer, but we see it pretty much everywhere any plate armor is being shown. To me, it looks like rough hammer marks, almost akin to, say, something like a black sallet. I feel like I've talked about black sallets before, but with this game and YouTube shenanigans combined, I feel like I've been brought upon by early onset brain rot, so I'm just going to reintroduce them again. The term black sallet is a term that we use today to explain a sallet, which is a type of helmet that was quickly produced for, well, to be honest, lower classes of fighters. Essentially those who would need to be outfitted by the local lord or noble or whoever their employer, and essentially would buy the cheapest effective armor possible. There is a whole Knight Errant video that mentions them, and he explains it in much better detail than I will do here. The whole point of that tangent, though, is that black sallets are just but one example of hammer marks on very rough pieces of armor. It is something that was done, and honestly I think it looks pretty interesting here, even though it is most likely as simple as a ping file overlaid on top of pre-existing armor sets. Also for armors, Kensei and Orochi got some more metal-ish armors, so that's pretty neat. What is not neat is that Highlander got a full set of what could have been really cool armor, but then they went and textured it as leather. Why? Well, why does Ubisoft do anything, really? The inner machinations of their mind are an enigma. Regardless, hopefully they take this set and simply make a metal texture for it. Then he could have a somewhat feasible coat of plates and maybe a metal helmet. In the meantime, he at least has that chainmail hauberk that works really well, actually. Last thing I'll talk about is Nusha. I actually really like this set, only because it has the rough iron texture and it has 2 jade beads. They have a full Chinese faction, yet I feel like there's a criminal lack of jade being used on their weapons and armor sets. Anyways, that's enough about the armor. Now let's talk about the pirate hero. I forgot what the actual name of the hero is, and when I try to look it up, everyone just keeps calling her the pirate hero. I really hope that the new hero isn't just called Pirate, but at the same time, I really hope that the new hero is just called Pirate. That is criminal levels of laziness that we have yet to see before. I know that she has her own Chinese name, but that's just like how all the other characters have names, but then they also have their hero name as well. No one's calling Blackprior Vortiger anymore or Urzabet. Anyways, the pirate is female only, which is a shame to all the people who would have wanted to make their own For Honor version of Blackbeard the Pirate. I don't know why they made Kyoshin male and the pirate female, as I feel like if you're planning on gender locking both, then swapping them would have made more sense. But then how would you be able to make femboy Kyoshin and tomboy pirate memes, guys? Isn't this just such a kooky game? So yeah, gender locking is stupid and you should be allowed to play whatever gender you want, but that's probably too much money for Ubi, so here we are. Now before we look at the pirate's weapons and armor or clothes or whatever, let's just look at some of the gameplay they showed us for her, because I guarantee you this will be the closest I ever get to doing an analysis on this hero, so enjoy. For starters, I really like the concept behind her weapons. The idea of engaging close quarters combat with a flintlock pistol and a cutlass, yes, according to them, a cutlass, but I will circle back to that, was actually feasible enough that there was even a treatise designed during the Napoleonic era that was made around this concept. Now, was this technique of dual-wielding a sword and pistol common? Not really, but there's a lot of nuance to it, and I think Matt Easton could explain it a lot better. I will link the Scholar Gladiatoria video that talks about this in much better detail. First thing I want to point out, which is neat, is that she uses the pistol itself along with the sword to parry. This is something that was actually mentioned in the previously stated treatise, according to Matt Easton himself. Not a one-to-one comparison in technique versus how they do it in game, but still worth mentioning considering that there are some heroes like Warlord who parry with their sword when they still have a shield. Besides that though, yeah, there are a lot of things that I think are pretty dumb. Why she does this behind the back trick shot for her follow-up after heavy is beyond flashy. I mean, the animation goes so fast that it just looks scuffed in my opinion. I feel like if they wanted to make it fast, then they should have just done a straight shot ahead instead of doing this weird-ass JoJo pose of death as she 360 no-scopes her opponent with her flintlock pistol. Also, yeah, she shoots multiple times with the same pistol, but I don't really hold a grudge over that because if they were going to incorporate reloading into the actual kit, then it would be really hard to pull off. It would be possible, don't get me wrong. I think Aaron Black from either Mortal Kombat 10 or 11, I can't remember, had to reload his revolvers if you wanted to keep comboing with them. At the same time, at least in Mortal Kombat 10, he had a lever action rifle that never had to be reloaded and could be fired forever and essentially stun lock your opponent. God, I love Mortal Kombat. Anyways, they get a pass for the gameplay. They don't get a pass for that one execution where she makes the opponent dance Old West style and she just keeps recocking the same flintlocks. This shit is cheesy as hell. The execution that isn't cheesy as hell, though, would be the one where she's trying to shoot normally, but then runs out of ammo. Flipping the pistols around and using them as a club is pretty cool. Moving on to her armor, or technically clothing sets, I don't have much to talk about specifically here, as I don't really know what Chinese pirates would have worn, but I don't think that they would have worn Napoleonic-era European frock coats similar to the pirate hero's default set. But I mean, it's a Chinese pirate with a gun in a game that was supposed to be about knights, Vikings, and samurai, so who honestly fucking cares at this point? I will point out that if you are just going to completely create the antithesis to this game's core design values, then why not really double down? Why not add different styles of pirate themes as well? It's like they really wanted to try something, but then got too scared and ran off. For example, how can I be a pirate and not have a tricorn hat? They attempted to make some sorry half-assed version of it, but it looks like a rodent crawled onto her head and died. So maybe in the mental gymnastics they drew the line here for some reason and decided that this is where the lore should start playing a role. We can't just have 18th century European hats on a character that was designed around a historical character from 18th century China. It just wouldn't make sense. Anyways, here's some minions wearing actual tricorn pirate hats. Per usual, the minions are out here just casually out-dripping us, and there's nothing we can do about it. Again, I would kill to know what is going on behind the doors of the For Honor development studio. I just want to know their thought process. How did they come up with these ideas? Who exactly is pitching them? How much thought is put behind them before they just send it out? I'm fairly certain that the only people in North America that are even considered part of the For Honor team are like the 6 or 7 people we've seen on the Warrior Den stream, and the rest are all out of Chengdu studio like they said. Which, by the way, out of their very minimal workload that the game already has, the recent maps and armors are done by this outsourced game studio in China. I don't know, man. Makes me wonder, at least. Anyways, now onto the swords and pistols. So for starters, they call this sword a cutlass. Now, as previous people mentioned before when this here was first teased, so I'm not the one who's just coming up with this right now, this actually looks a lot closer to a Chinese butterfly sword. Now, technically, the butterfly swords are supposed to come in pairs, and also they're supposed to be much shorter. But I can understand that they're trying to stretch it to make it make sense in the For Honor universe, whatever the fuck that means. For all intents and purposes, though, it works. To 99.99% of people, it probably looks fine. I mean, it looks even passable to me, but one of the first things I notice is that it is stupidly wide. There are some cutlasses out there that are pretty wide, but this one goes a bit beyond it. Pair that with how short and stout the blade looks, it does make it look uncanny to me at least. There are some other things that are also a little bit whack, like the sword guard not providing enough protection in my opinion, but really minor in the grand scheme of things. Looking at the flintlock pistol, and yes, it is a flintlock pistol, as you can see it has a frizzen to spark the flint. The first few ones actually look pretty good. I don't know why they went with flintlock, as the Chinese didn't really use flintlocks until much later than their European counterparts, and even then it was something that wasn't ubiquitous. What would have been more common in the East is matchlock. So I don't want to get into a long, complicated explanation of both, I'll just sum it up as black powder firearms need some sort of ignition to fire. Matchlock uses a lit match of some sort that is held behind spring tension. Pull the trigger, the match ignites the powder. Flintlock has the same thing, but instead of a match, the flint strikes a piece of metal, causes sparks, and that ignites the powder. In my opinion, they should have gone with the matchlock pistol because not only would it have made more sense for a Chinese pirate, but also they could use their physics engine, which is one of the things about this game that work really well, to show the match rope that hangs off the pistol. Another weird detail about these flintlock pistols is that not a single one of them have a trigger guard. I find this especially odd since a large majority of these have a lot of minor details put in, yet for some reason no one thought to put in a trigger guard. Again, I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just a missed detail, but literally just typing into Google flintlock pistols would give you a bunch of reference images, and probably 90% of them would have trigger guards, considering that it is protecting one of, if not the most vital part of a firearm. That pretty much sums up most of what I thought was interesting. I may have missed a few things because I don't have as much time as I used to make videos. If there is anything that I happen to leave out, let me know in a comment down below. Also, I did hear about the new skins they are planning on releasing, and I'll probably make a video on those so long as they're not way over the top, but knowing Ubisoft, they probably will be. But besides that, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead, leave it down below. Like always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.